Hi, everybody. Welcome to episode 14 of RoboWeekly. Hey, Dan. So we had
there, Fabian.
We had a holiday, or as you call it, a vacation. For what do you memorialize on Memorial Day? I've forgotten.
Well, I think it's about troops and
English
war,
people?
and
So
I think it has to do with the soldiers.
Right, soldiers. Okay. Well, as you know, I'm an immigrant from England, so I think that makes me like a recolonizer, quite frankly. But that's all. Who knows what it's called at this point?
How's that going?
So 14, we did take a break. So we've got a few things to talk about. Let's dive straight in.
Okay.
So Kilted Kaiju basically is the ROS, which is end-of-lifing ROS 1. This is, I think, the 11th version of ROS 2. And, they've made a big announcement about it. There's a open source Robotics Foundation this is part of, where they're claiming to have some Xeno middleware. But I know their definition of middleware and what our definition of middleware is two different things. You want to talk about the new... this new initiative of ROS 2.0?
Sure, it's very deep in the weeds. They're swapping out, which they did before when they went from ROS 1 to ROS 2. They swapped out, I think it was Kafka or RabbitMQ or some earlier version of message passing, and they did something called DDS, which they said was the bee's knees. Now they're saying that's crap, and they're going to go to a new one. I don't know if it's, because maybe these companies may be funding it. I shouldn't cast aspersions. It may be the right technical choice. I'm not crazy about ROS and the way it's designed. I think maybe you probably need something like it to sort of tie everything together, but it's certainly not. I mean, to call it middleware is stretching the point. I mean, in a sense, they call it an operating system, right? It's in the name. So, and it is, quite low level, and it's definitely only for coders and, people who are deeply technical. It doesn't really, you'd never present any part of ROS to the end user unvarnished.
So even if you bolted their new middleware Xeno on top of it, it's still going to look very unwieldy to the average human being.
When you get down, when you look at the press release or what they're saying about it, Xeno is just replacing one component in the system with another that does exactly the same thing.
Okay,
they just think it's better or something.
So nothing to get that excited. But I thought it was just worth bringing up, especially to you, because it's part of the open source Robotics Foundation.
And we've talked about that. I mean, we've been internally building a tool that basically uses HTTP serving. And microprocessors is more the setup is more like the way internet programming and web design is done. So we have some interesting fingers in that pie. But I mean, frankly, I think the end result of where robots are moving is you're going to talk to your robot like you would talk to a person. So everything else is under the hood, basically.
Right. So no more punch cards, no more keypads. No. Yeah. Typewriters, QWERTY typewriter. Okay, let's look at some more fun stuff.
Sure.
If we can move to slide 2 about what's been going on. So this one is called, and I apologize that I don't have it ready here. But this one is called.
I see feet and legs and an arm
Tron
coming out of the head. Tron 1.
Yeah. Now Tron is coming out of China.
Right.
No price on it. But it says it has the relevant feature here is that it's a 2-legged robot with a spectacularly long arm that comes out of its head.
Right. Yeah, and they did that so they can get to the floor.
I'm sure it's so it can get to the floor, and it's also so it can get up high. So it's basically, it can raise and lower itself on its knees and ankles, and then it's got an extremely long arm, single arm, which has all kinds of degrees of freedom. And this is a fairly interesting way, and obviously you can see it's in the house. I think it's a fairly interesting way of dealing with a lot of the problems that we're dealing with right now.
Perhaps I will say it's I'm not sure that the legs really make sense, and it's going to be hell to keep this thing balanced because you got all that top heavy weight. I'm not sure. I'm convinced that this would be a really a robust form factor.
Might be one of these things that's clues.
Having come up with
okay, let's take a look at the next one.
Myself, having come up with some weird form factors myself, I feel entitled to opine.
No, I think I have to tell you, it does look like it has a very high center of gravity, which is only going to get higher once it extends those legs. So yeah, and it doesn't look like it's writing in any way. So, and as you can see, the background is entirely rendered by looking.
I'm not sure anything is real in this. I mean,
is real, yeah.
Well, I mean, everything could be rendered these days, right? So I mean, there's no.
I mean, there's no shadows on the feet gives this one away. I mean, this is just completely ridiculous. All right, what do we got next to look at? I think the next one, this is Rainbow. So I'm obviously taking looks at things with form factors that we like the look of. So Rainbow, I know there's something significant about who its investor is. Yeah, owned 35% by Samsung, which means we can consider this the Samsung robot.
Right.
But it's called Rainbow, and it brings two new features, which for us are not two new features. One is its added mecanum wheel system, so it can go in 360 degrees on each wheel. Yeah, which we've been doing forever, so I'm not quite sure what that's all about. And what's the other thing it says it can do? It aims to establish Rainbow, and by virtue of that, Samsung, which as we know took over from Sony as the largest consumer electronic shop on the West, as he wants to establish them in the global humanoid robotics marketplace. So this is a big deal. Not selling it, not pricing it, saying that all their orders are coming from science institutions, but this really is a look of things to come. I mean, this is Samsung's big bet. I would not bet against them, but I would also guess that this is extremely expensive.
If you can get one.
If you can get one, I'm sure you can't.
Yeah, it feels to me more like a research project, to be honest.
Yeah, and as you pointed out a minute ago, quite frankly, who knows what's rendered and who knows what isn't. I mean, when I go to these shows, as you do, there's not that much that's actually moving, and most is what is moving. If you look carefully, there's got a guy with two joysticks walking like 6 steps behind it. So we continue to be, charlatanized. I think we've got one more this week. Oh yeah, this is just a fun one I wanted to show you. Unfortunately, I've forgotten the name of this one. Joe, can you see the name of the slide on this one? Because I know I named the slide after the actual product. Let me see if I can just bring that up real fast.
What the hell is this?
Yeah, dexterity. Do we see that picture again? There it is. That, if you can see that guy, that just gives you the scale of this. And we don't talk much. We don't talk much about industrial robots, which we know is 97% of the business projected to be. This is one that I thought was quite fun. This is a pallet loading and unloading system.
So this is an industrial robot, a huge robot.
Yeah, so pallets are standardized at 4 feet by 4 feet. And this, I guess, rolls in and just does what it does. And there's a guy standing there. I just thought it was pretty cool looking, obviously, the way it's photographed too. But I like this industrial robot. You like it? Is it industrial porn for you?
It's big. It's looks like a transformer in the movie. Yeah, I'd have to look at it more closely. I'm not sure what it does that the pallet robots they have now doesn't do.
I think it slides in and sort of unloads it box by box, but I'm not quite sure.
Right. Well, I know there's Agile Robotics is doing more humanoid type warehouse stuff,
where they sort of walk in there and walk out with a box.
Yep.
So let's move to the topic of the week, which I wanted to get your opinion on. What we focus HRI, which is human to robot interface, we believe very strongly, obviously, that no one's going to be using a QWERTY keyboard to communicate with their robot. Alexa and Siri have taught us that. But other than HRI, human to robot interface, and we have touched upon this before, I'd like to get your opinion on RRI, which is robot to robot interface. A very basic way of that is your refrigerator automatically knows that you're out of milk and sends a message to your local grocery store, and it gets delivered without you having to do anything. But of course, robot to robot interface is going to take on a lot more meaning than that as these things start to become mobile. And I just wondered what direction you thought that might take.
Well, there's a thing called the Model Context Protocol, MCP, which one of the big guys brought out, and there's been a lot of talk about that in the blogosphere. So it's basically a communication schema, right? So it's a format like a video codec. It's like a way of interoperating that's standardized. I think Anthropic actually came up with it. So if anyone's interested in it, that's MCP is what it's called, Model Context Protocol. And so I think people are wondering, because people are putting together these applications that have a lot of different models. There's not just one model running, right? There's a whole bunch of them.
We happen to be in this industry, which is it's a sexy industry, like a lot of these AI industries are, in the sense that it's exciting because while we're focusing on picks and shovels, we don't know what amazing things people are going to come up with. That's sort of one of the exciting bits, is sort of watching things happen and ideas give birth and come to life. What sort of ideas do you think this robot to robot interface, or however you'd like to call the protocol, what kinds of products do you think it will give life to?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of things it can do. I mean, you always need some way to communicate, and having standard, syntax makes it easier, and semantics and stuff like that. I think there's a lot of interest in this in the swarm field. I mean, we saw the news about Ukraine blowing up a bunch of Russian bombers with basically commercial drones, right? So those things have to coordinate with each other. There's a lot of crosstalk between these machines, and this also gets into the agent thing. And somebody came out with the thing that their agent could think for 7 hours before getting confused or something like that. So there's a lot of this, where does the information live? How does it go from node to node in the network? What is what is human input versus what is just robot to robot?
So I'm interested to know. I gave you the very simple example of the refrigerator and the milk.
Right.
You gravitated towards probably what the main utility will be, which is on the battlefield. But can you think of any non-military or more home time applications?
Non-lethal.
Yeah, where the non-lethal applications where it might be important for robots to talk to other robots.
Sure. I think in disaster situations, reconnaissance, doing patrol, guarding.
Within the home, will your Siri downstairs talk to your Siri upstairs?
Yeah, I mean, there definitely is going to be inter-process communication, sure. The way that's been focused on so far, which may or may not be the right approach, is a lot of people have sort of suggested that the computer should just be able to use a program like any human does, right? So look at the screen and fiddle with the mouse and the keyboard, as opposed to assuming everything has an API. That actually hasn't worked as well as people thought it would. So there may be this move towards more standardizing. There are also these stories about these multi-language LLMs will sometimes switch to Spanish or Chinese to say something, to each other. Right?
Well, actually, I don't know if you've seen the recent news, but I think it was Meta's version 3.0 started blackmailing its
Yeah.
code.
I mean, they were red pilling it. They were red teaming that they were trying to elicit that response. But yeah, sure. And so maybe imposing sort of an interoperability language that you can understand might be part of alignment, right? Because if you let them just invent how they want to communicate with each other, we may very well be, it's like speaking pig Latin, so your parents can't understand, right?
I understand we may be getting a guest next week who's someone that actually knows something about a little bit about the swarm technology you were talking about.
Right.
So I think John may be joining us, which will be exciting.
Cool.
He knows a lot about robots or robot interoperability.
And he's got a lot to say.
He's got a lot to say. In fact, he'll keep talking until you use the magic word stop. So one of us will have to use that word. Thank you, everybody. It's been a pleasure speaking to you all after the holiday weekend, and we'll see you next week. Bye.